Thank you so much, Maji. All much appreciated. Colleagues, again, I just want to say welcome to the leadership game session with myself, Pat Mazibuko. I just want to say that I am not a leadership guru. I'm just a permanent leadership student, and amongst us on the platform, I would say we've got thought leaders. So colleagues, without any further ado, I just want to bring in Lungasio, and I'm going to ask Lungasio, who's our guest speaker, to basically briefly say something about himself. And then from now, within the next 30 to 45 minutes, we are all in his capable hands. Thank you so much, Lunga. I really appreciate you taking time to be with us here today. But we're looking forward to hear from you in terms of your views when it comes to digital transformation, leadership, and those issues. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much. For the rest of us colleagues, shall we remain muted and let's switch off our cameras. Thank you so much, Lunga. Over to you.
Thank you, Pat. Please do tell me when you guys can hear me. I've got some speaking notes in front of me, so I sort of toddle between the screen and also my speaking notes as well, so that at least I have some sort of a trend in terms of how I talk today. So just a little bit about myself. I'm the CEO of Telkom Consumer within the Telkom Group. Personally, I'm a family man, right? I've got a wife and 2 young daughters, and I tend to spend a lot of time with them, especially weekends. So when you did, invite me to come to this session, I was almost, torn, in between spending time with family and also being here as well. But also because it's also one of my passions as well, to actually share some of my thoughts, right? In some of the things. Yeah, I don't profess to be a professor in most of those things, but it's my own experiences, my own lived experiences, but also my own work experiences that have actually exposed me to actually look at the world differently. So given that short introduction, thank you very much. And I thank to everyone on the call who's taken the time off to actually come and be part of this session as well. So I've been asked by Dr. Pett to just share maybe some of my own thoughts as well on digital transformation, right? It's a topic that's really close to my heart, and I've been exposed to many organizations that have been digitally transforming themselves, but also I've also been fortunate to actually lead some of those programs as well. We had many successes, but also lots of failures as well, right? And we failed spectacularly in certain instances with pride, right? Because, out of failure, we learned a lot. And, towards a next iteration, which is what I usually do, is to actually take the learnings from the previous failure and actually apply them. And, by doing that, then your propensity to succeed becomes much higher in essence. So what I'm sharing today is, it's those experiences, friends and everyone who's on the call. I'd like to paint a picture around what I call what I call digital, right? Or what I see as, digital in essence. And I think for me, it's more important to actually, maybe just understand what we mean by it, right? For me, I always look at a person or a consumer, to our own business or an individual, right? That actually has access to some sort of internet, right? And, they're using, maybe a mobile phone to interact with the mobile phone. And it's either they're interacting with someone else or they're buying stuff online or they're on social media in essence, right? And that's how it started in essence. So we used to have what we call physical interactions as human beings, but a lot more of those are also happening online in essence, which becomes digital. But that also pushes itself towards how businesses can actually capture the market, right? That is much more digital in essence. And I always call it the economy is becoming much more digital because our interactions are becoming much more digital. So if I look at South Africa in essence, there's about 59 million, right? People, or 60 million, give or take, in essence. Now, if you look into what each mobile network operator claims as customers, right? And add all of that up, you'll realize that quite quickly that there's about 100 million SIM cards in the market. So if you add MTN, Vodacom, Telkom, Celsius, whoever is actually selling a mobile phone with a SIM card, you'll realize that there's about close to 100 million SIM cards on the market that are active at any point, right? So people have got multiple SIM cards. So what it actually means is that South Africa, has a high penetration rate of mobile in essence, right? And I've also gotten, wind of the fact that there's about 38 million internet users, right? 38 million, that's 64% of the population of 60 million. 64% has access to the internet and they're actively using it daily. Now, of the 38 million people, there's about 25 million people of those that are actually active on social media, in essence. They're active today, right now, 25 million, right? It's me and you, some of our kids, friends, family, and everyone else, right? Now, if I look at the 38 million, internet users, about 64% of those guys, right? That's about 64% of the population, in essence. They spend an average of 10 hours a day, 10 hours, 6 minutes a day on the internet. And that's ages between 16 and 64, right? I'm not talking even about the kids that are less than 16 years old. And there's a lot more of those that are spending a lot more time. So what it actually means is that we're spending a lot more time on screen, 10 hours a day. And if you sort of average that, an individual sleeps for 8 hours, maybe the rest of the hours is spent working, right? So there's a lot of screen time that people are spending, which is a good data point to actually understand. One of the things that I've also noticed as well is I started looking at products and different industries in terms of how long it took for a product to reach 50 million users, or an industry, as an example. So as an example, the airline industry took about 68 years to reach 50 million users. The automobile industry, which is the cars, it took 62 years to actually sell 50 million cars. Now, the telephone, which is where telecom started, in essence, took about 50 years to reach 50 million homes. Electricity, 46, television, about 22 years. Mobile phones took 12 years, only 12 years to reach 50 million users. Now, think airlines, 68 years, mobile phones, 12 years. The internet, 7 years. Facebook, 3 years. WeChat, 1 year. And there was a game at some point, a few years back, called Pokemon Go. It took 19 days to reach 50 million users. Now, if you look at traditional industries such as the airline and businesses that are operating in the internet space, such as Facebook, it's much less time for them to reach as many users as possible. So what it actually means is that digital and the internet can actually expose businesses or people to a much wider market, much quicker than traditional industries. And that's what it actually means. Now, just by understanding with 60 million people in South Africa, 38 million have got access to the internet, it just tells you, right, that there's this huge market of people in the internet that you can find that are interacting daily. 25 million of those are on social, right, which is actually quite a high number. In most countries, you find exactly the same things as well. But I've also noticed as well, in business, there's two things that businesses do digitally. They are either selling you as a user, right? So think Facebook. So Facebook, their product is basically 1 billion plus users. They go to large companies and say, well, there's 1 billion plus users on my platform. Do you want to buy advertising? And people buy advertising. Actually, if you are a Facebook user, you are being sold by Facebook. That's how they monetize the platform. Same as LinkedIn and Google, right? And same as YouTube. You watch YouTube videos for free and people advertise around it. So that's one model. The other model is when businesses are selling something to you via a digital platform. So think eBay, take a lot in South Africa. There's Jumia, there's Travel Start, there's a whole lot, right? There's Netflix, right? They are selling you either goods or services via the internet. And those are the two different, business models that you'd actually find. Now, I started thinking around what I call, if anyone or an organization or even a government, started thinking about, digitally transforming itself, because what you have to do is to actually locate a person or a customer. They're already on the internet. How do you either sell them, which means you create a product where they come to your platform and create a market, and then you actually sell. That's how you monetize it. Or you create an online store like Take-A-Lot and actually sell to those customers. How do you go about doing that in essence? There's a couple of design principles that I've actually used, right, over the years. And one of those is you want to start small, right, and expand. You start small, you run a POC, you test it, you get some insights, and insights tell you how to iterate further. You don't start by saying, here's a product. You start small, run a POC, they call it MVPs, right? Just a minimum viable product. That's all it actually says. Do you have a product that you want to sell? Do you want to test the concept? Test it. Now, as you do that, you actually start demonstrating what I call tangible value, right? But you also want to build trust between you and the customer that you're selling to, right? If you are a government department and digitally transforming, right, a government department, take SARS as an example. SARS had a huge issue of queues in branches for people to file their tax returns. They created an online platform. And they started small, people started testing it. As people were testing it, they realized that it's actually working. It actually builds what I call digital trust. Now I can trust the platform, I can file online, I don't have to visit a branch. And they killed all the queues in branch. They closed some branches, they saved costs as SARS. And that's how they've actually built their own digital transformation journey. There's something that I call show and tell, because as you do that internally, you actually have people, or what I call naysayers, that are going to say, it's not going to work. We've always sold our products and services via the stores. We've always serviced our customers, right, via physical touchpoints. As government, we've always delivered our services by opening SARS branches or, or what I call SASA offices to deliver the services, right? We've always had municipal offices to collect rates and taxes from users or from the communities. So we can't create an online platform that's going to work because that's what we've always done and it worked. So as you're actually building these POCs and proof of concepts, you've got to show and tell. As you show and tell, you're actually providing touch points to people internally and they start believing that it actually works, right? And I think for me, what's more important, less is more, so that you can test the usability of your product or your own concept as well. And that actually allows you to really establish what I call current sort of trends that you can use to iterate your product further. So those are some of the things that people can start thinking about, right? When they actually wanting to digitally transform a service or sell something, or how they actually deliver a product, right, to a customer. That's very important. And I think as leaders, we also fail to actually take our own people along with on the journey. You've got to trigger what I call a cultural evolution, right? As a leader, when you're actually leading this type of programs or you're embarking on this journey, right? Trying to transform something digitally. Because the way you do it, it's different from how we've always done it, right? And, there's a few things that I've actually used in the past is, it's what I call applying design thinking principles in essence, which is what I've just shared now around start small, put it out into the market, test it, get insights, iterate, make it better, make it better, make it better, right? Don't try and create a perfect product from day one. You think it's perfect because that's how you see it up until someone else sees it and tells you that it's not perfect. Now in digital, it's ruthless, right? The customers are very ruthless. They give you instant gratification, or it's either they expect instant gratification, but they give you instant response on your own product. If they don't like it, so think about a post on social media. You either press a like or not. Think about someone delivering a message via WhatsApp. It's either someone is going to read your WhatsApp and respond to it or not read it. That's feedback, right? Think about delivering a service via an online channel. They're either going to buy it or not buy it, right? So customers will tell you quite quickly if they don't like your stuff. What I've also noticed as well is that South Africans in nature are actually quite nice people. So if you visit a restaurant, and if as a restaurant owner, you're walking the floors and asking everyone, is the food good? Is your experience great? And everyone says yes, because we're nice people by nature. We never tell you that this is not good, I don't like it. If you do, it's only about what, 2% of people, of patrons in a restaurant. However, go to their own social media account, Facebook account, or whatever it is, same restaurant, and start looking at commentary that's being written about their own experiences. People choose digital to do this because they can hide behind it. So it's very ruthless. It gives you instant response. It tells you if your product is working or not, right? So you have to actually start putting something out there, get the information, get the response, iterate it, make it better and better and better and better, and using digital in essence. And in organizations, we used to call it agile, right? You run agile, but it's small sprints, right? You say, you know what, in the next 2 weeks, this is what I want to do. You go and do it. After 2 weeks, you actually launch it. You take a product into market within 2 weeks. And then the next 2 weeks, you actually get insights. And then the other 2 weeks, you sort of iterate, right? Make it better and relaunch it again. And that's how you do it. It's faster, right? It's much faster. It's much more agile. You've got to be responsive to what your customers are telling you or people's feedback, right? And that's how agile actually works. And there's a couple of things, right, that I can actually talk to you as well around, what does this do to workplaces? So now think what COVID has actually done just in the past 2 years. Almost everyone or every organization, every government department, a business, a small business had to figure out how to actually carry on trading away from their physical establishments to a virtual world in a matter of a day, right? They had to adjust quite quickly. A lot of enterprises found themselves having to actually look at their own employees, send them home, but still make sure that they're enabled to work from home. So which means give them a stable internet service and possibly pay for it as an employer so that they can carry on working. I mean, Zoom moved from being an unknown entity to one of the large enterprises that's well known, right? By just offering their own platform as an interaction platform. When Microsoft launched Teams, literally 3 months before COVID started, it was not a standalone product. It was part of a suite of products. They never pushed it as if it's the unique selling proposition when you buy a Microsoft, proposition. They were adding it. They were actually evolving an old product. They had it. The amount of traffic they experienced during COVID was out of this world. They actually had to improve the product quite quickly, including where they actually stored the product, right, which is in the cloud. They had to actually get into a lot more data centers to make sure that they can carry the traffic. So it really affected a lot of marketplaces, but a lot of other companies quickly reacted to that and captured the moment and sold a lot more of their own products. And that's how it actually affected workplaces in essence. However, as organizations, most of our policies were always written in such a way that we show up at a physical workplace. So organizations had to adjust quickly, rewrite the policies. Your own letter of employment had a location in it. We actually had to go and change that and make the location your. In that time, so it affected a lot. But digital platforms created an opportunity for organizations to adjust quite quickly. That's why most of us on Teams and actually Zoom or any of the other platforms that you can use to actually virtually interact with people. This also affected a lot of economies, right? Not just COVID, but just digital. So think about, how services are being delivered, right, in many economies across the world, including in our own as well. What I've also noticed as well, almost every government department has an online presence these days. Might not work perfectly, but they're working towards making sure that it actually works perfectly. That affects how government delivers the service to its own, to the population at wide, as society in essence. It becomes much more easier for them to do that than physical present or footprint in essence, or having physical branches. However, they were also forced to think about what do you do with people? And those branches, do you close them down and actually impact people negatively by losing their jobs and sending them home in an economy that's not creating jobs, right? They actually have to deal with that. That's some of the impact. Do you retrain them to be able to actually support this new world in essence of where people are actually preferring digital interactions rather than visiting a branch? And if you do retrain them, and if at a branch level you needed 20 people, if you close that branch and basically divert that entire traffic of people visiting that branch to an online platform, can you absorb all 20 people, or do you only need 2 or 3 highly skilled individuals to support the platform? What do you do with the other 17? Those are some of the decisions that are actually being that leaders have to actually think about, because this also has impact on people's lives. So think about a single person who's working today. Potentially, they are supporting up to 10 people in a household, in essence. When that person loses a job, there's no money for 10 other people. It increases the unemployment in the country, but it creates instability in society as well. So we have to think about how digital helps us, but also the unintended consequences of it. There's a lot of things that people could potentially do by reskilling and retraining themselves. As an example, you can pick up a developer's course, right, that you can do online within 2 weeks, and you're a fully fledged developer. And there's platforms online where you could potentially, as a person, put up your skills, and jobs will be created for you by entities and enterprises across the world. In essence, saying, we're looking for a developer to take on this project. It's going to cost, we're costing it at $1 rate of X per hour. That's how much we pay you. And if you pick it up and deliver it within 2 days, we'll pay you $5,000. So then you see new jobs being created, right? And it's not a job, it's actually a business where people become developers and actually pick up work via the internet and deliver it over the internet and still get paid, and have customers that are sitting in Australia or India or the US or somewhere in the rest of the continent, in Kenya, as an example, right? So those are the new opportunities that are rising up, that are coming as a result of these interactions becoming much more digital. And that's what I call it. It's our own interactions that are becoming much more digital, because we prefer to do it via the phone, right? Or via a screen, in essence, and less more so, meeting physically, in essence. Now, one of the challenges that's facing, also leaders is aging workforces, right? What do you do with aging workforces? And I'll take a typical example of what happens in a telco, where you've delivered your services via a copper line. Now, you get possibly out of 1,000 customers, half of those will give you faults, right? So you have to employ people to actually fix these faults. But if you evolve that technology from copper into a fiber technology, the faults drop drastically. So what it actually means now, you're sitting with a workforce that was supporting an old technology, and the new technology is much more better than the old one. What do? You reskill them. And if they're aging, what kind of skills do you give them as well to make sure that they can support these new services that you're delivering, or actually deploy them elsewhere in the organization? Now, we also have what I call an asset in the country of a very youthful society. Now, youthful society is an asset if it's highly skilled. And when I say highly skilled, I mean they can deliver something, some sort of service. We're not looking for medical doctors here. We're looking for plumbers, technicians, and a whole lot of other types of skills that are actually much more lucrative in essence, but they don't really require high levels, of skills like doctors or training, let's call it that. Now, how do you make sure that youthful society actually has those skills to be able to offer those services, and actually have those skills to offer those services as businesses, rather than looking for employment and actually be employed as a plumber or an electrician, because large companies are not employing a lot of people. So how do you actually redirect that youth, give them the skills, but also make them to think that actually I can create a business out of this thing? And when they do, then you increase the number of small businesses in the country. Now, large economies, large successful economies such as Japan, China, Germany, and actually, the US, small businesses contribute closer to 70% of those GDPs. In our country, possibly around 20%. So we're actually assuming that large enterprises and government will actually grow the economy. But no, it doesn't work that way. It's the other way. It should be small businesses. And small businesses, I mean plumbers, electricians, hairdressers. And the youth can actually take up those jobs as well, right? They can learn a lot of skills actually online via digital platforms. They don't have to even show up at a physical, branch or school, in essence, to do that. So those are some of the things that are happening. But I've also seen as well in the medical world is delivery of services via virtual platforms. Now, there's a huge concentration of specialist doctors in urban areas rather than rural areas. In rural areas, you'll find generalists, or general doctors in essence, that can deal with certain illnesses. And in certain instances, you need a specialist doctor to actually come in. How do we use digital to actually deliver those services? As an example, there's something called telemedicine, right? It comes from a concept of delivering service over the phone, but you can do it virtually. So how do you ensure that a small clinic in a rural area has a stable internet connection via fiber? They actually have a computer screen. They can go into a virtual platform. You've got a patient, you've got a nurse and a doctor talking to a specialist doctor in Johannesburg, delivering that service, right? Via an online platform. Those things are happening elsewhere in the world, in our own country as well. How do we scale them to make sure that we use this enablement, which is called virtual platforms or digital, to actually deliver those services? And I see it in education as well, right? During COVID, my kids had to be removed from the classroom. They had to go online and be taught by teachers online. And that was the impact in the education space. There's a lot of these things that we can do. So currently we're working on a larger project in the Mpumalanga space where we're enabling them as a telco. They're delivering laptops to learners and teachers in those communities, and delivering, by doing that, they're actually enabling teachers to actually deliver the service over the internet. They're actually converting physical textbooks into a digital soft copy and uploading them into these laptops. So kids always have to, basically, they don't have to carry physical textbooks. They can just go online when they're home to actually read stuff. And you've got a serious opportunity there of actually killing what I call textbooks being lost, which is impacting on cost to the government to buy more textbook, but not because they're being delivered via soft form. You can't lose it. Even if you lose the laptop, there is another copy that can actually be used in essence and delivered via that laptop. These things have got serious, huge impact in how education is being delivered. It's actually changing how education is being delivered. It's saving government a lot of money. I mean, when I looked at that process, I thought, geez, if this could be replicated across the country, the Department of Education can save a lot of money. There's also another argument around 4IR versus the industrial economy. Now, some government leaders says, what, let's leapfrog industrialization into 4IR will actually solve unemployment. I tend to argue differently when I look at our own youth, our own unemployment levels. How can we create mass employment, right, using industrialization, right, as a concept to actually attract large enterprises to open their factories here? The BPO space, which is the contact center space, we can deliver those services in South Africa cheaper than most places. So we've got a currency that is weaker than the rand. You've got companies that are trading in dollars, earning money in dollars, delivering services in dollars that could potentially come into our country and invest, right, in a BPO space, a contact center with 1,000 people. They'll create immediate 1,000 employment opportunities for youth to deliver those services. In South Africa, we cost it in rands. It becomes cheaper for them to do that. Similar to what China has gone through in industrializing their own economy. They're moving towards 4IR now, but they're not losing that. Think about the mining industry as well. We still have a lot of deposits in coal that we can still utilize in essence. So really focusing on industrializing our own economy would actually help us. Doesn't mean that we'll stop doing 4IR, which is the stuff that we're talking about here. You do it in parallel, in essence. And I think for me, that would be much more of an opportunity for us not to lose as a country, in essence. Now, I also look at, enterprises as well that are taking opportunities in this digital world. So think about ShopRite, right? Right, so an opportunity of delivering services to your home. You don't have to leave your home and come to their shop. So they partnered with this entity and they created a product called 66, I think so. And they deliver, you go online, order your stuff, within an hour, they deliver it into your home. Now, I argue that Pick n Pay and Woolies had their own online platforms way before ShopRite. But ShopRite saw an opportunity, did it differently, delivered the service. Pick n Pay and Woolies had to change their own strategies to copy what ShopRite is doing and possibly try and do it better. Now, all of a sudden, I'm seeing almost every business with an online presence trying to do e-commerce because they are realizing there's an opportunity because people are already on their phones. Rather be present on their phones and sell products or deliver your service, right? Now, there's another opportunity that I'm seeing. There's a serious challenge in South Africa of migration of people from rural to urban cities in search of opportunities. Now, in my space, we employ a lot of developers, right, via an outsource model. And what I've realized that almost everyone pulls developers from India, because what they did in India by educating their own youth to become software developers over a period of time, they then realized that they can actually export this skill to the world. And by exporting the skill, they didn't have to actually push people to go and migrate and go into other countries. They just offered the service. Now think about Nduzuma in KZN. There's a rural boy who just passed matric, who does a developer's software development course online and offers that services to companies in Johannesburg, in Cape Town, Durban, in India, in Australia, the US, and he's doing it online via his own laptop. All he needs is a stable internet line, which we have even in rural areas. A lot of networks, you can get the network in rural areas with data, right? You offer this service and you just need a generator to make sure that you can power the laptop, right? When you don't have enough energy. And you offer this service, you don't have to migrate to the rural areas. And I think we actually have to start thinking that way as a country. How do you empower people in rural areas to pick up a skill and take opportunities in this digital world? And offering and exporting those services cheaply to the rest of the world. And I'm saying it cheaply because to the rest of the world that is earning in dollars, it's going to be cheaper to pay someone who's pricing you in rands using your own dollar, right? And I've seen this happen. So I looked at this Indian model and I realized, geez, these guys are claiming it. And I'm seeing it in South Africa, in small towns such as Stellenbosch and outside of Stellenbosch. There's a lot of software developers there that are doing that for American companies. And these young boys and women are earning a lot of money. They don't have to migrate to the city of Cape Town or Johannesburg. So those are some of the opportunities that digital creates, for people not to really migrate from rural areas. But also think about running a business in a small town such as Nduzuma. Your rental is cheaper, your electricity is cheaper, your water is cheaper, your internet possibly could be cheaper as well. So your input costs are actually cheaper than someone who's actually operating a business from Soweto, right? And therefore you can become very much price competitive, right? When you're pricing in the market, and you can earn a lot of money and win a lot of opportunities because you're operating from a cost-effective location rather than a city that's got higher rates of rental. So therefore you always price your price higher so that you can actually pay your costs in essence. These things have been happening around us, friends. However, what I've also picked up is that policy and government hasn't been keeping up, right? So the policies haven't been changed, right? So think about an Apple that's offering a music streaming service in South Africa. Are they paying VAT on it? Are we collecting the tax? Have we changed our laws to make sure that this entity, which is not located in South Africa, may be located in California, but trading in our country, they do pay, dues in essence. So think about e-commerce, right? What it has actually done. Think Netflix. If they don't have a local office, I don't know how SARS is actually collecting tax, right? They almost want to start at the end by going to the people that are partnering with these guys to say, to tax these people. But those entities don't have the know-how of how to collect tax on behalf of us. So that's policy. That's a policy gap there, right? Now, there's a lot of things that are happening in the internet, including, data protection. Has data protection policies kept up with that as well? I don't know. And also government, how they actually see opportunities in this space and having the ability to govern the interactions that are happening there as well. I don't think policy has kept up with it. Yeah, lastly, colleagues, I was just thinking, can digital transformation solve world hunger? I don't have the answer to that. However, I do see a lot of opportunities, right? Both employment and business opportunities for the youth, for the unemployed, to actually offer their services, right, via digital platforms, or use a computer to learn a new skill that they can then, offer as a service. When you do that, then you earn some sort of income. When you earn income, you can put food on the table, and possibly, maybe we can solve world hunger. But yeah, I'm not saying that, right? I think there's opportunities in essence. So yeah, Dr. Pet, given those words, I thought I'll just share some of my thoughts. I hope I haven't overrun the section. And yeah, I'll take it back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lunga. You did a pretty good job there, and I think it was great. And I'm going to allow my colleagues to basically talk to you right now. I'm going to ask the panelists to basically pose a question or comment to Ulunga. Okay, let me start off with Funzani. Funzani, please come in. Your comments to what Lunga has been talking about.
Thank you, Dr. Pat. Thank you, Lunga. Just a second, I'm trying to put my video on. Okay, I hope I'm visible. So it's a number of things. Yeah, it's a number of things from my side. Obviously, the issue of how we collect tax revenue as countries or jurisdictions as a result of e-commerce is a subject of interest for me and maybe slightly a passion. Interestingly, I have just learned about a tax convention that was adopted in 2019, where pretty much what they try to do is they create some principles to try and address the issue of e-commerce, tax revenue that's generated through e-commerce platforms. And what this permanent establishment, let's call it a definition or principle, what it starts to do is start to look at, it's not perfect, and you're quite right, there is a policy gap, but what it tries to do is try and establish a number of things. Obviously, in e-commerce, the physical presence sort of falls away, but it starts to also look at, are you running, let's say, a server? So if you're a Takealot that's based in, I don't know where you're based, you have a server that is running in that country. You generate revenue through that server, you operate that server, and the country in which you have placed that server and operate the business is the country that gets, due to the lack of a better word, dibs on the ability to or the right to tax that revenue. And the rest, how the world is sort of dealing with this is they try and deal with it via various tax treaties. And as you know, South Africa is one of those countries that are party to the Vienna Convention of 1969, which basically says South Africa is a friend to progress, and where there are underlying treaties or subsequent treaties, we will deal with that. So there's lots of very interesting developments that we can look to within South African tax legislation. But currently, if I look at the existing case law, what we are seeing quite obviously is we're relying on some of the definitions and principles of that tax model convention of the OECD, as well as we sort of negotiate based on whether we have established dual tax arrangements with other countries. So very interesting. That is a topic I'm really thoroughly interested in. And I like that you brought in the insight of, what the world of tax will look like due to e-commerce. The other thing that I felt was quite interesting that I picked up from your delivery, Lunga, is with regards to how do we start to view, the world of digital transformation? How do we start to view digital transformation as a way to alleviate poverty? And I think if as IT or leadership from an industry perspective, we look at this, there are a lot of opportunities that we can look at. You touched on industries that can be created, obviously, to create jobs and, that sort of thing. And that is part of the core of poverty alleviation. So thank you, very good delivery, and a lot to think about from your presentation. Thank you, Lunga.
Thank you so much, Funzani. Shall we go to Thabo Kolosha and then Pauline Purity in that order? Over to you, Thabo.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Mazibuko and the panelists. As Lunga was talking, it came. There's something that I've been trying to develop over the past couple of years, purely because of the skills shortage in the space that we're in technology and digitization. I was looking at maybe setting up an automation school that will focus on developers, on industrial automation. And then COVID hit. And then I realized I do not need a campus. I need an online school to drive this. So my thinking has now all of a sudden changed, because I was forced by digitization to move from the way of thinking that I need a campus where people can come in and learn these skills, because there is a huge gap that we can feel, especially if we're going to move to digitization. The youth are coming out of universities, technicons, and colleges with some sort of knowledge, but the world is moving to a different place. So they need to be equipped with some of the things that I have seen in the industry that traditional universities and technicons are not offering. So I was looking to package this. Now that we're having this discussion, and well, the environment has actually forced me to relook at what I was thinking to embark on in this digitization space. Is now I can take my idea and put it online. And right now I'm busy developing the scope and saying, how do I get, because it's not your normal run-of-the-mill stuff that I'm going to be offering at this automation school, because we talk about robotics, we talk about control systems, we talk about PLCs, we talk about software development. These are things that most universities and technicons are not offering, but yet people in industry are looking for these services. It goes beyond just offering the services within the scope of this country. Now that the world is open to us, and we've also opened the world to ourselves, we are now interacting. I'm seeing more of these online courses. I was looking at a few of them that are even offered by MIT. And I'm thinking, why can't we have our own MIT in South Africa? And it's something that I've been debating for over a long time. That we need to have specialized institutions like MITs. You look at Stanford, most of the guys who are in technology, IT, they have either been to MIT or Stanford or Caltech, but we don't have any of those in our country. And I felt for us to take advantage of that, we need now to build focused institutions in that space. And I'm glad that we've had this opportunity to discuss this, because it's made me think outside the box now, to say, don't wait for a campus to be built in order for this to be offered. We can all start doing this online, even with collaboration with likes of MIT, Stanford. We can then create those links and offer some of those courses, those specialized courses that they are offering. We can then make them available. And especially now that I think you touched on something very important, which was Facebook, the activity on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. We should be taking advantage of that, because a lot of people are there on a daily basis, hour after hour. If we want to communicate our knowledge, our information, we need to use those platforms. Right now, people are spending a lot of time talking a lot of nonsense on some of these platforms, instead of taking advantage of those platforms to disseminate information, to educate each other, and to point each other in opportunities that we could be taking advantage of. I don't want to talk too much, because I'm very passionate about the subject. I just wanted to bring that up, because it actually has made me think a lot more differently than I was thinking, just having this conversation with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thabo. Shall we bring in Pauline? And after Pauline, I'm going to ask Lunga to respond if he has anything to respond on. Pauline, over to you. Also, be succinct.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mazibuko, and good afternoon to everybody on board this event. Just for me, what I find interesting is that as a country, South Africa has varying capacity to optimally harness and integrate digital technology into our spaces. But I feel that it's playing out very unevenly across the country. And this is going to have consequences for competitiveness, for inclusiveness, and of course for sustainability. Everybody's going to want to move to the Silicon Valley of South Africa, which is Cape Town. What does it mean for the development of the other provinces? For me, that is very important. I also feel that in terms of our country, I must be honest, in terms of the Department of Science and Innovation, I haven't read the latest strategy, but the last time that I didn't see enough talking about digital transformation. Number one, we have the issues of structural constraints, we have the issue of financial constraints, and we have the issue of selfish constraints. And I think we know what that means, misappropriation of funds. If you take India, you can log in anywhere. There's no cost to data, which is why you find youth development and the development of IT engineers coming at no cost to the government. So I think we are in a situation where the opportunity cost of not reducing the cost of data, not taking infrastructure to the communities, we really are killing ourselves. The future lies with the youth. 4IR is very exciting, but the amount of time it takes us as leaders in business to understand a strategy proposal, somebody out there in a little homestead has already created an app. So unfortunately, we cannot move forward as a country unless we do not see radical transformation. Interestingly enough, I did a paper the other day on leadership. And we need to be honest, is the demographics of people that make decisions in businesses consistent with what we need to achieve in this information age? That's my top issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Lunga, before I bring you in, I've got a question for you. Is digital transformation changing or altering the power balance within the political space and geopolitical space? As you respond, kindly talk to them, please, Lunga.
Sure, thanks, Pat. Maybe I'll finish off with yours, right? So I'm just glad that colleagues or friends, they're being inspired to do a whole lot more, right? So, I mean, in the governance space, I've heard that at least now, the government or, policymakers are starting to look at, how we actually can, start taxing internet companies, that are operating in the e-commerce space. That has been bothering me for a while, right? Because I sort of thought there's a lot of these entities that are actually located in these tax-friendly sort of countries, right? So that they can hide a lot of their income. They're just, earning a lot of income and we're just not taxing it, right? And yet they're actually using our customer base in country as well. And I think it was Funzani was also talking about, what he's been trying to do in the education space, utilizing what's available online, right? Utilizing what's available online. But I've also noticed, just to share a little bit more as well, is that, there's, if I look at Twitter, I read on Twitter, I don't comment, but I also get a lot of short news, right? I get news and that's what I use for. But I've also noticed that people, just use it incorrectly as well. They're just not using the power of Twitter as an example, or even Facebook. But what I've also seen is people using the power of those platforms to their own advantage, becoming thought leaders by sharing stuff that they know, and they get a lot of followership, right? But what I then realize is that they build the customer base, right, through those followerships. They farm them and then they commercialize them because they're thought leaders in these things. Then they end up selling a service. And that's how they create their own businesses, by just using social media. It's cheap, it's free, and they didn't have to even build a website. They just went to a marketplace of 1 billion people and started utilizing it, right? So it's actually quite interesting how people are seeing the opportunities and do these things. Just commenting on your point, right? With power dynamics and government and geopolitics. What digital has done, especially social media, and also media in essence, because media is curated news, edited, there's always an agenda, or there's always how they actually tell the news, in essence. I just forgot the word they actually use in that space. So it was usually a controlled channel, in essence, of information. And politicians used it to their advantage to control the flow of information to populations, in essence, how they influence how we think through what we see and read about. What social media has done, turn the script around, people are talking, no one can control this thing. It's becoming a problem for politicians. The truth is coming out, but also a lot of lies, right? Also coming out as well, which becomes a problem. So now how politicians influence societies becomes much more difficult because of social media, because people can just connect online and talk about stuff, influence each other, and almost remove the politician. So now with geopolitics, you still see what I call propaganda being pushed, but it also is countered by people who've got facts that can actually just share it. They don't have to call CNN to say this is what is really happening. They just go online and do that because it's either CNN likes that or doesn't. They might flight it or not flight it. So it has a huge influence on geopolitics, on politics, in general, both bad and good, right? And that's what it has actually done. So it's creating new challenges for societies, because there's a lot of disinformation that's actually happening, but it's also creating a lot of opportunities because there's a lot of facts that are being shared about stuff, right? And all of a sudden, via Google, we've all become doctors, right? We either want to be vaccinated or not. And when you visit your doctor and he says, "Listen, this is what I think is wrong with you," you say, "Hey, no, I've read online that actually this is the diagnosis." Now, all of a sudden, we're using online platforms to think that we can solve some of our own problems as well. So it's creating opportunities, but also challenges for society. And I'd leave it at that, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lunga. Right on that note, let us bring in our medical doctor, Mpati. Please comment on what Lunga has been talking to us about.
Thank you, Dr. Pat, and thank you also to Mr. Lunga. Just to comment on the last one, the one in which our patients, they look into Google, and then they will come into the doctor's office and then they will tell you, this is what I think I have. And they will be so convinced that that's the problem because of what they read from Google. And you find sometimes that it becomes difficult to convince them otherwise. So that presents as one of the challenges, but it's good to have patients that are knowledgeable. I hope I'm clear. Everyone can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank
you. Yeah, so it becomes a challenge, but also it's good to have people or to have a community that is knowledgeable as well, and for our people to be well informed of their disease or anything that is affecting them. And also just to touch on the issue of how digital transformation can improve healthcare delivery. Mr. Lunga, you touched on the issue of telemedicine, in which a doctor or a physician with the patient can interact via social media or via the screen or via the phone. It's actually a very good, can be a very good opportunity, and it's a very good way of doing things. Now the patient doesn't have to spend much going to the doctor's office, but also it's only in certain cases, like for instance, with some of the disease, you will need to see the patient physically. You need to do examination. You need to do all of that. But really, for some of the disease, the telemedicine can be an effective tool. Also, one of the things that digital transformation can do or can do in improving healthcare delivery is you know, it makes, if we can have a tool in which we can have, we can easily store and easily access patients' information. Say you are in Joburg, you see a doctor there, they do certain investigations, and then they start you on certain medication. Then you have to move to Durban. The doctor in Durban now has to start again, taking history and doing everything. Now they take what you tell them, and they don't really have what the other doctor did. So if we could have a tool in which information can be easily accessed, patient's information can be easily accessed, that could be great. I saw we have an IT here on this platform. So maybe that's one of the things that in future they will need to see, to look at into developing, and it can be a great tool. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dlamini, much appreciated. Shall we then go to Chupi Mukhatle, followed by Tembela Mapumulo, in that order? Come in, Chupi. Chupi, please come in. You are on mute so far.
Sorry about that. Am I audible now?
100%. Thank you. You may proceed.
Thanks, Dr. Pat. A very good afternoon to everyone on the platform. And I just want to say to Lunga, thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I think, all the key insights that you've mentioned are really touching on, some of the issues that we have from a South African landscape in the context that we're currently living in. And I really found that you really had a very holistic view on things. So I just want to also approach things, in terms of the digital transformation journey from a telecoms perspective, and I just want to, kind of comment on, the rate at which digital transformation is kind of, infiltrating and unfolding in the world versus how, South Africa is kind of adopting it. And, I'm just thinking, are we actually doing it at, the relevant rate? And obviously, we also do know that not everyone is, privileged to accessing online platforms, and us having the opportunity of also kind of driving that level of balance between, the digital divide currently as it stands in our context. And obviously, I would imagine that this would also kind of, determine the rate at which, our digital transformation journey kind of unfolds in South Africa, and the rate at which, it kind of gets employed. But, given the opportunities that you've also made reference to in terms of, how digital transformation can add value, I want to hone in particularly into the telecoms industry and, really looking at it and zoning in from a telecom perspective. So how can we actually, adopt the relevant technologies at Telkom, given the issues that we have, to kind of drive agility in a very swift manner? And I think there's such a great gap that we can bridge in terms of how our digital transformation journey at Telkom will unfold, and how we can actually employ it in terms of putting ourselves and positioning ourselves at the forefront of things. And I mean, I really find it really awesome that, a lot of us are actually, are really privileged to be attending these executive courses in terms of, gaining access to the knowledge about digital transformation, so that we can kind of start optimizing things from a trade perspective across different business units within Telkom. But what I'm really interested in is, in terms of from a leadership perspective, at what point from a Telkom perspective do we actually, because I really think Telkom has a really great opportunity of kind of, pulling a rug under the feet of many of our other telco players. But what I'm keen to see is, how do we actually understand that, okay, we are acknowledging our potential, but at what point do we actually start utilizing digital transformation to actually activate our potential as an organization? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chupi. I want to go to Tembela. From Tembela, I will then go to Pearl, and then after Pearl, we'll ask Lunga to comment in that order. Come in, Tembela.
Good afternoon, colleagues, panelists, and good afternoon, Dr. Pett. Thank you so much, Lunga, for your insights on the digital world. It was very interesting listening to you in terms of what we should be looking at in terms of the digital way of doing things and the business thereof. My then question will then be, where do we start? Because now when you're looking at the issues of, I'm not sure, am I visible? Am I audible?
100% Bella, we can see you, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then my question would have been, where do we start? Because now when you're looking at the issue of the digital world, it's easy for everyone to say, yes, we need to be moving to that direction. But for me, it's about the volume of the people that tapped into that space. Because if you're looking at the communities of the disadvantaged communities, that is where most people are coming from. So how do we then, the organizations like Telkom or the organizations that have been leading or that have been successful in terms of the digital world, go and do the outreach programs that will then assist the kids that are in those areas to start imagining and start thinking at the issues of digital worlds, and how do they then help in terms of optimizing the use of the digital world, in terms of them going to the university with that understanding that there is these kind of things that are happening. And again, how do we ensure that everyone, whether the society, community, and organizations, have insights on the processes of the digital worlds, on the digital world, and how do they then benefit in terms of the physical to digital, digital to physical technology that they can take advantage of, and at the same time, how do we then ensure that the systems, like an education system that we have in the country, is equipping us in terms of start to be thinking that way? Because for me, it's more about starting to think about the things that we want to go to, rather than to say these things are here now, what do we do about them? But if we can start to have the volume of people that are starting to think that the digital world is there, and what is it that we can take advantage of in terms of the digital world, or with the presence of the digital world. And again, how do we then ensure that the leaders in the institutions, whether the education institutions, whether the government institutions, which is the departments, are starting to employ people that are starting to be thinking that way, starting to be thinking the digital, starting to be thinking technological advancement. Because for me, that is where things needs to start from. The institutions should be leading, then some people behind will start to imagine things that they can do with what is present in front of them. Thank you, Dr. Pett, and thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you so much, Tembela. I'm going to go to Pearl. After Pearl, we're going to go back to Ulunga, but there's going to be another session where I'm going to be asking questions to yourself as well. And Ulunga, you are at liberty to ask questions from the panelists. Pearl, please come in. Colleagues, I cannot hear Pearl. I don't know whether it's my network. Please confirm.
I'm not sure. It says.
No, I can hear you now.
I'm going to switch off my video. You can hear me now. I'm switching off my.
Okay, switch off your video and then talk to us, Pearl. It's okay. Yeah, you may switch off your video and talk to us. It's okay.
Okay. But can you hear me?
Yes,
now?
you can. Thank you so much. You may proceed.
Okay. All right. Okay, Mr. CEO Lunga, sharing that you have on digital transformation. I'm going to look at Dr. I think Mphathi mentioned that there is no database where they can get all the information. So that is one of the things that I see as a lack in the Department of Health. Number two, still on that, we have seen Discovery having implemented that. Everywhere you go, whether I'm at home or I'm in Devon or I'm in Joburg, if I go to the doctor, any doctor can get in my medical history on the Discovery side. But the other one that I wanted to touch on when it comes to medicinal prosthesis, I have a family member who waited for this prosthesis for almost a year. And when I looked at it, this thing is built using the 3D printing of digital 3D printing. That I've read somewhere where someone have done it here in South Africa, but due to the funding, that person stopped to do it. So it's one of the very critical parts of the medicine part of digital transformation that we are still lacking. I see the tendency of us not following up. That person even went on TV to show what he has created. It was an arm of a kid who lost the hand in an accident. We also have Dr. Chiflaro, who created the middle ear, meaning that if the middle ear can be created and it can be implanted in someone and that works, but we are still having people in Durban who are having the same problem and they are staying deaf. I see a problem with our institutions here in South Africa because we do have that skill somewhere and that skill is not utilized. We are not mass producing something that will help us to a point that it will improve the lives of the people. It will improve the lives of the older people that are going deaf, and the people that are losing their limbs and their hands. So can we start maybe looking at producing these things? We do have skill. The problem that comes up is the skill is not supported. We'll rather import something from China or import something from Germany which will take a year to reach here, but we have someone here in South Africa who can be able to do the same thing in 3 months or 2 months, and people start getting that those things that they're waiting for years, and they're paying an arm and a leg for that. So I think it's one of the things on the digital transformation, especially on the medical field, that we are seeing this thing of saying a doctor is in Cape Town, they can talk to me. I have a GP who is telling them is a specialist, that I can see, but let's also take it a step up to say, now we are able to produce our own things. The Capitalist Niggas book, it says we are consumers. And then even though we have skill, we are still remaining consumers because we are locked in the consumer world. So, Mr. CEO, can you please also look, when you are sitting in your big boardrooms, can you also look at this talent that we have in South Africa that is not being utilized to improve the lives of the people? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pearl. Lunga, let me hand back to you, and I'm not quite sure whether I'll be able to address everything. You can also throw a question back at the panel, but do your best. Over to you, Lunga.
Yeah, sure, Dr. Pat. Yeah, you're right. So, I mean, I don't have all the answers, right? I don't have all the answers as well. Yeah, I'm also learning, but I can share a lot, right? So, I mean, there's a couple of things that the panelists have thrown, including Tsupi as well. So, I mean, Telkom is sitting at a very opportune space, right, to really take on digital transformation and transform how we deliver our services to customers. And I think we've been talking about it for years, but we're just not getting into it, right? It's not easy, right? So I've had an opportunity of working in different industries, and I know what it takes to actually do it. You know, when you look at it, it always feels like you have to climb a mountain. However, you know, when you're looking at it, you're like, geez, I'm not going to be able to climb this mountain successfully. But you've got to almost sit and think, you know, when can we start doing something? You've got to start small, start now, right? So from my end, I'm actually pushing it to a point where, you know, part of my own strategic pillars is to actually drive digital transformation. And I've called it out and I said, actually, I'd like to kill most of the queues in our stores. I'd like to kill most of the calls that are going to our contact center and divert them into digital channels. So people must actually go online into their mobile app and self-service themselves. There's a lot of things we can do in that space, right? And if we start there and we start small, we'll win. But I'm also, you know, cognizant of the fact that if I don't change the operating model, we won't win, which I've done, right, in essence. So there's a lot of things that we can do in our own space to actually make sure that we can do these things and do them successfully. So we don't have to ban the ocean. We can start by banning, some water on the port. Maybe then we get a bit of confidence to ban the water in the pool, then we go to the ocean, right? And you have to start small and you have to start elsewhere. So you have to start somewhere. And I'm pushing really hard to make sure that we can do that. Now, there was also a comment around, you know, how do we help rural students, right, to participate in this economy that's becoming much more digital? And I think for me, there's a lot of programs that we run as organizations, such as We Think Code. And I like We Think Code because it's actually teaching students software development, right? But they're only based in Cape Town. And I've been saying, guys, we've got to find a way of delivering this service differently, either via online or actually replicate it in different locations across South Africa. What I would love is to actually see a student in Matatiela or Nduzuma learning this skill and actually not leaving those areas to come to Johannesburg and actually offering those services from where they are. If we can do that, we'll have an impact on society. But I think as a country as well, we have to start thinking about, so you've got the youth that you can upskill. What do you do with the adult unemployed population, right? And that's where industrialization comes in. You create those type of jobs as well, right? In that space as well. How do we share more insights with everyone? And I think these kind of sessions that Dr. Petty started, it actually contributes towards that, right? And I actually participate in many of them. That's why when I started, I said, you know, usually my weekend, it's usually, you know, time with my family, but I do steal time from my family now and then to actually share more insights with a whole lot of people. And I actually like visiting schools as well in rural areas, right? And I do it for free, right? And for me, it's about imparting knowledge. And I think for me, it's wanting to touch that student who is doing a grade 8, right? Which is the old standard 6, right? In high school, starting high school, to think and dream big beyond where they are. They can't right now because they are exposed to this little. If you come and actually tell them, right, and share what you know, but also to some of them to see people that look and feel like them doing stuff, it actually encourages them. It actually tells them there's a world out there, outside of their own areas, right, that they can start thinking about. And I actually encourage everyone, right, on the panel to start giving a lot more, right, give a lot more to communities that are less fortunate, where you can potentially have an impact by just sharing what you're doing. You don't have to talk about digital, just share what you do, right? Because for them to see someone like them who's actually made it, and I'm saying made it, who actually lives outside of their communities, who has some sort of means to put food on the table and actually enjoy life. And it's things such as just exposing different careers to kids, right? Because a lot of them know the traditional careers of becoming a doctor, a lawyer, and. However, there's this world out there of things and stuff that's being done by people that they don't know. So I encourage everyone to actually do a lot more, right? And I think We also have an issue of leadership. I think, one of the, panelists did confirm that. What do you do with much older leadership, right? That doesn't see these opportunities, that doesn't think the way the youth thinks, or even, people, are evolving, right? I always say, actually, for me, I've met 58-year-old men and women that think better than 28-year-old women or men because of how they see the world, because they've been able to evolve themselves, right? They've been able to evolve themselves. However, we have a challenge of a large majority of much older people that are not seeing these opportunities, that are afraid of technology, that are afraid of this fire or these digital things that we're talking about, that don't want to change. But you've got to keep at it in terms of sharing and oversharing and sharing and oversharing to a point where they actually realize that it's actually not more than complicated than the phone that you already have. You're making calls right now. You're sending a WhatsApp. Your chances are, my mother's on Facebook, right? And I said, well, you're doing it already. And that's a start, right? And that's how you convince a lot of them, right? And when you actually simplify it like that, they're like, wow, I never thought it is that, actually. But it is, right? It is, but it's still a challenge, right? For many organizations, even government entities. I mean, I attend meetings with some of government senior leaders, and I get horrified how they speak. And I'm like, geez, we still have a long way, right? We still have a long way, but I actually use the opportunities to share. And by sharing, people start to open up their eyes and actually receive information and do something about it. So thanks, Dr. Pett. Yeah, that's all that I have, but I think there's a lot that's being shared by a lot of people that resonates with me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lunga. Let's just proceed. I'm going to go to Sianda Gazwite. Sianda, please come in, and from there, I'm going to bring in Mondli, and then Ramon, and then Setabile. Then from there, I'll start asking questions. Zwite Galanga, please come in.
Try to, okay. Can you hear me, Doc?
We can hear you. We also want to see you, Zwite.
Okay, technology, deal with it here. Just a second. Oh, thank you very much. Can I be heard and seen?
100%. You may proceed, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Mazibuko, and thank you very much, Lunga. Maybe let me say this as a disclaimer. I come from Ntuzuma. My home is at Ntuzuma, and I hear it's quite a popular name with Lunga. So
sorry.
No, it's fine. So we can accommodate you one of these days. You can come and visit. But my perspective, of course, is on education. You know, I'm in one of the oldest schools to be built by a Black person here in South Africa, Ohlanga High School. And when one looks at, you know, digital transformation, one gets the sense that as a country, we are more reactive than proactive. You know, COVID really showed us flames. And I think we can take a lot of, you know, learning from Gauteng, particularly the MEC there, Lesufi Panyaza, because long before COVID came, he spoke about paperless classrooms. He spoke about 4IR in terms of education. KwaZulu-Natal, where one is situated, in the Department of Education has the largest number of learners. And it's one of the vastly rural, you know, province. And looking at the events of the past year or years, one really sees the need of migrating, you know, to digital education. I mean, in a year, learners have 207 days to learn. Actual learning needs to take place over the period of 207 days. And you know what COVID did. There was a lot of disruption and disturbances as a result of COVID. Now, how many days were lost of teaching and learning due to COVID? Whilst we are smarting from COVID, well, in the province of KwaZulu-Natal again last year, we had this problem of looting. Again, days lost. Information that was supposed to be shared with learners now has to be squeezed, and there has to be a realigning now of the ATP, which is annual teaching plan. At the floods, the recent floods that have recently taken place here in KwaZulu-Natal, or particularly at eThekwini, and you can see that these are lessons, these are harsh realities that are telling us that we have to move with speed to digital transformation. But the challenge we are having, as we have been talking about aging workforce, is that most of our educators, they look at 4IR as competition, not something that can complete them, but something that they compete with. Of course, change is not nice. Change is difficult. And as I've indicated, we look at these changes as, competition rather than a tool that can help us. And we think that a computer cannot replace a teacher. It's a fact. Even the most industrialized countries like America and Russia, during COVID, most learners indicated that there's no replacement for a teacher. But you see, many service providers in the communication space, they have now what we call e-learning. The thing about this is that it equalizes between the less fortunate and those who are coming from very disadvantaged backgrounds and those who are coming from affluent households. COVID really discriminated. There was a clear discrimination in terms of COVID, in the sense that schools that are advanced and learners who are attending those schools, they were able to catch up, irrespective of COVID. Unlike when there is less or there is no online learning that is taking place. So now there's now a great disjuncture between the two. The child who was advantaged was now further advantaged because they never lost any learning days, and teachers never lost any teaching time. Now a child who is not exposed to these opportunities, it became a problem over a problem again. Now, education is migrating, like I indicated the example of Gauteng. Gauteng is now moving, and our provinces are following. Like, for instance, here in KwaZulu-Natal, you find that you have a program. Of course, it is all over the country called SASAMS. And they've got what we call a triple D dashboard, where you can be able to extract information about a learner, about an institution, how many girls, how many boys, how many children are coming from a single-headed households, like families, and you get information like how many of them are orphans and how many of them are vulnerable. At a click of a button, that is the information one can get presently. Therefore, it becomes necessary that we take advantage of such. Online learning, as I've indicated, service providers have been very smart in the sense that they now have apps where learners can go online, can get into the app, be able to find information freely without data. We used to go to schools. I'm coming from Tuzuma, like I indicated. You would find that in the laboratory, there's nothing but methylated spirit only. But now through these platforms, learners can simulate, these apps can be able to do experiments for them. There could be simulations that are taking place. Again, the lack of preparation from us as educators, has really made it hard for our learners who are at the university. Learners, when they get at the university, irrespective of whether they are exposed to the computer or not, they get given a laptop. Now, imagine if this learner was trained from a very young age, as he was indicating, the facilitator, as early as grade 8. So it is not a culture shock when a learner goes to the university and they get given a laptop, because most of the classes are online classes. So there's a lot that we need to do as schools and as a country. Further than that, there's a thing that we are now calling e-submissions. Weekly, the Department of Education, throughout the country can be able to zoom down to Ohlange and say, how many educators attended school this week, were present at work, how many learners were absent. And then we can be able to look at strategies, like we indicated, the tragedies that have recently taken place. You can then be able to redesign your ATP or your annual teaching plan can suit all these learners who have lost out in terms of hours that have been lost. Now, I think we are moving slowly but surely. Like, for instance, I'll talk about the institution where I'm at. We've got something called telematics, where an educator, if the educator is not going to be present at school, he can prepare a lesson and be able to, during that period, if my period is between 9 to 10, I can be able to take learners to that particular classroom, have them supervised, and have a lesson delivered to them, even if I'm not there. You see, again, you've got universities that have come on board where such classes through telematics, a learner from Stellenbosch, a learner from Inanda can be able to attend the same class because both of them have been exposed to equal opportunities. This then narrows the gaps, between those people who have and those people who don't have. So I fully concur with the notion of digital transformation. But again, the emphasis should be to teachers that this is not coming to replace them, but this is coming to enhance education and to prepare learners for the world that we are going to. We have also introduced many technical subjects, because let's be factual. Most of the education that has been taught in Black schools is dysfunctional. It's education that is not helping a learner after the learner has exited the high school. We now talk about entrepreneurial skills. We've introduced subjects like civil construction, mechanical technology, computer, and so on and so forth. Technical maths and technical science. What's the point of forcing a learner to do pure maths if pure maths is not going to help that learner? What's the point of teaching a learner physical science if the learner wants to pursue the technical world and do technical maths? So this is the shift that we are slowly approaching, so that we look at the abilities of learners and we don't leave our dreams through our learners. I wanted to become a doctor, so let my child become a doctor because it's a dream deferred, and therefore let it be lived by somebody else because I could not. So that would be my submission. I think once the education sector takes advantage of digital migration, this country will suddenly move. But if there is slow movement on the part of education officials and authorities, then we are taking the country back. So that would be my submission, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mkhatshwa. We've got 3 people that I would want to get them to comment. It's in this order. Mondli, I want you to come in, and Dr. Ramon. From there, I'm going to ask Lunga to comment, and then I'll finish off with the ladies, that is Sitabile and Zama. In that order, please, Mondli, come in, and then Ramoni. Colleagues, for the interest of time, can I ask that we are succinct? Thanks, Mondli. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you very much, Lunga, for those insightful thoughts in your presentation. Yeah, they really make one think. But mine will be quite short. I would just want to pose maybe a problem or a question to you. I think we all agree that Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, all the social networks, it's easier to get people involved. It's easier to see opportunities. It's easier to do business. But I've seen this coming through from various commentators in this platform, and maybe even yourself, Lunga, that there are problems at government level. I know this is not a political discussion. There are problems at a policy level. I see a fundamental problem where we can't really have full fruits of digital transformation without certain core infrastructure being safe and reliable. I would make just two, power and water. Basically, for me, if Lunga, you can comment on how we can start to change the dynamics in those areas, in the sense that currently we're not just talking about load shedding and the deficit in power, but more about vandalism and basically disregard of infrastructure that leads to all of us suffering in the process. And some of the infrastructure is the very infrastructure of the telecoms, which is key to the whole digitalization process. If I may just give you an insight, in the water industry, we currently, half of the water that we treat and produce, it goes to waste because of vandalism, leaking pipes, etc. I'm just putting a thought there. I know Thabo spoke about a school of automation, but how do we change the communication such that the attention goes to how do we use this digital transformation to help protect our infrastructure, to help protect us from losing water, losing power. Thank you, Dr. Peck. I think I will end it there.
Thank you so much, Mondli. Shall we go to Dr. Ramon? Please come in and also be succinct, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Pat, and thank you, Mr. Lunga. Digital transformation has been the buzzword now for the last 2 to 3 years because of the rapid development and distribution of the many, digital technologies out there. Telcom has been one of those enablers as well. I was just sort of motivated by when we talk about the consideration for the needs of the rural communities. And any national agenda in any country for intelligent infrastructure is not complete without the explicit consideration of the needs of the rural communities. And many initiatives that are being implemented worldwide to make villages self-sustainable by using smart technology like the ICT, the IoT, and thus reducing some of the migration issues between the urban areas. Telcom are one of the enablers of that. Like you were just talking about recently, distributing the the computers, the laptops, and I think more businesses can also partake and participate in this initiative, so we can reach that transformation goal. And I think, without understanding the possibilities of digital technologies in business, it would not be possible to lead any country or company during this digital transformation. And so that is why when the colleagues are talking about learning digital transformation at tertiary level, I think it's an expected characteristics of digital leadership, which is digital intelligence. And motivation is crucial in managing digital transformation successfully. So, Dr. Pat, thank you for this informative learning today and the topic that you've chosen, and also Mr. Lunga for your insights and your knowledge on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramon. Thank you so much. Lunga, may I kindly invite to respond, and then I will bring in the last 3 sets of ladies. It's going to be Setabile, Zama, and then I would want to invite Nondumiso Dlamini. She's one of our guests. But let's get Lunga to respond first. Over to you, Lunga.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dr. Peter. I won't respond to all of them, right? It's just good insights that I'm hearing from everyone, right? Maybe just 1 or 2 things around just the distraction on our own infrastructure, right? Both Telco, Eskom, and Transnet, actually. And maybe I'll leave that up to you because you're actually heading that project on our side, because it is something that's really been bothering me as well, because I think it's a national tragedy, if you actually ask me, because just the amount of money that is being lost, via that, and something, will give, right? Because, those industries, just Eskom, Telecom, and Transnet deliver essential services. They deliver essential services to millions of people every day, right? So think about a day zero where, you can't make a phone call, right? You can't make a phone call, you don't have no electricity, and you can't move at all. That's an issue. It's an issue for the country. And I think it needs to be dealt with decisively. I think there's also technology that we deploy on our side that can be used to actually monitor this. The issue of water leaks, just in municipalities, it is something that really, 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 worries me a lot. And yet there is so much municipalities can do to actually almost catch this before it becomes an issue. As an example, 2 issues, right? They can monitor their own infrastructure, from the comfort of their own offices. They don't have to go and check every little corner, right? Just to monitor water, because there is technology for that, right? And that's what IoT is about, in essence, so that they can see things before they even happen in many cases, right? And yet they're not using it. But they could potentially create apps for communities, so that communities, when they see something happening, they just take a picture and upload it. And that picture will directly integrate back into their own backend systems and trigger a technician to go and fix, the water leakage much easier and quicker, right? And I mean, these things are available, right? But the biggest challenge that we face with rural municipalities and also urban municipalities is a huge shortage of skills and capabilities. There's a lot of people that are in the wrong positions, but also it's a function of a municipality in a rural area not being able to attract the right kind of skills to come and work for them. But also, there is cadre deployment and nepotism and all those other things, right, where people end up in wrong positions. I've always thought of a model, and maybe it's something that I can live with everyone, right? How do you then help those municipalities? Do you create a shared services center, in each region where most of those capabilities are being delivered from there? Or do you create a company that offers those services to government, and then you can take them over and offer those services back, right, and deliver virtually, right? You don't even have to set up offices in rural areas. But it is something that I've been thinking about. How do you actually flip the script and help rural municipalities with capabilities and skills, such as small things such as finance, right? Finance, engineering, because they're unable to attract the right kind of people because of their own politics, right? Even if they didn't have politics in those areas, the right kind of skills don't want to live in those areas. They want to live in urban areas. How do you flip the script and actually offer those services so that those municipalities can actually perform better and see the opportunities in front of them and actually improve the lives of their own societies? Something to think about, guys. So I'll leave it there, Dr. Pett. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lunga. Maybe just to Uzama, I've got a question rather than just to go to Ulunga. Zama, we are living in volatile times, you know. Is digital transformation going to help us in these volatile times? And just think about the plight that we have in the areas like Soweto, where we are basically living on top of one another without any kind of accommodation and infrastructure. Your views on that, Zama?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Pat. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly, but we also want to see you, Zama.
Okay. Okay. Can you see me?
Yes, yes, thank you so much.
So I think for me, it can help to a certain degree, but I think it's about opportunity, you know, like Lunga said, where you get people moving from the rural areas and coming up to the metros. And then the cheapest place that you will go and find place to stay is in your township. So you want to keep people in areas where they are based, and then you want to promote economic growth there so that you reduce the volatility that you will find in areas such as Soweto, you know. So you have to make sure that your digital transformation growth is not concentrated in certain areas, but you spread it across in all the regions across the country. So I think that's very key in terms of how your strategy is implemented by the government, instead of focusing in the certain areas, but making sure you focus across and you grow and you create a balance in all the areas. So it won't help it totally, but you need to create a balance nationally to make sure that you stabilize your growth in terms of your digital transformation. I think
Thank you, Zama. Before I let you go, I just wanted to talk to us about the following. Will digital transformation have any positive impact on agricultural revolution? I know you're not an agriculturalist, but you are part of what they produce. So what are your views?
I think it would. It definitely would. And why do I say that? I'll take it back to myself. I come from a rural place, you know. I'm thinking about my father looking after his cows. He's old and fragile. So if we can introduce some sort of digital technologies that he can use to monitor his crops, monitor his cows, his sheep, while he's sitting at home from his cell phone, that will definitely assist him, you know. So from an agricultural perspective, I definitely think there is benefit into that. And it's something, I think there is already some sort of development into that. And I think from a government perspective and working together with CAR, I think there's a lot of opportunities that can come out from that to assist.
Thank you so much, Zama. Let me go to Setabile. Setabile, as one of the youth on the platform, tell us, is youth well equipped at this moment in time and ready to embrace digital transformation in order to be able to be key economic players? Your views there, Setabile?
Greetings, colleagues. Greetings, Dr. Pat, and to our guest speaker, Lunga. Absolutely, the youth is equipped. When I did take on the topic of today, digital transformation, I did Google it. And when I did Google it, I found what Microsoft had to say about it was empowering employees, engaging customers, optimizing operations, services, and products. With the youth, what I can say is they have a lot of apps going on. Most businesses are engaging the youth and engaging the influencers to get the word of mouth out there, to make content that engages people out there to know what businesses are doing. As an example, loyalty points. If you go to one of your garages, they will offer you a service card that as a digital transformation, you can take that card and every time you fill up, you get a bonus points. That is something that engages every customer, and that's something that builds loyalty. I think that is moving digital transformation forward, because most people will be like, I'm actually so loyal to my brand or to the company Useso, or I'm loyal to Telkom because Telkom has opened up Wi-Fi and parks in the townships and whatnot, which is some of the things that companies are taking on initiative to go into the rural areas, to take on the youth and to put Wi-Fi in the area, to put Wi-Fi in the libraries, to motivate the youth. Please, we are doing an incentive on this point. Please make videos like this, speaking to the youth, dancing, doing etc. and whatnot, to take the digital transformation of that company forward, engaging the youth mostly. Another thing I was going to speak on is when they said, is South Africa ready to take on digital transformation? As a youth, I do think we need to look at if there will be a loss of jobs, which we already have such a big problem with employment in South Africa. So if we had to open up the doors for self-service in our supermarkets, that would lose a whole lot of people's jobs. But there are apps where you can order something that you'd like to buy online if you do not have the time to go into the shop. So the people in the shops are still able to keep the jobs, and the company itself is still able to get an extra income, get the customers loyal, get the customers engaged onto technology. A problem that could be for the youth is some of them, the Wi-Fi they put in the townships is quite slow and it's very limited, and that is something they complain about, smartphones and finances. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Nondumiso Dlamini, may I invite you? I want you to talk to us. Can we use digital transformation to deal with the issues of gender-based violence? Nondumiso, please come in.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can see me. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everyone on the platform. Sure. I think it is a tool. I can't say completely will be able to eradicate or address any issues that we might have, because I think I'm of the notion that digital transformation is not a replacement of the work that we need to do or the deliberate work we need to do for change in South Africa. And I think that's something that's really important. And I think I'm just going to tag on what Lunga had said in the beginning that caught me, was the aspect of, we have a tendency in our government, and how things have been done, to kind of jump onto a trend or jump onto a policy or system, and maybe not intentionally so. And so I think we have to, for it to be a tool for us to be able to address meaningfully in a way, I think we have to not be disingenuous about it. We have to be real, we have to be authentic, and we have to understand that it's not a project. So we're not just taking technology to kind of address the issues, because we have deep systemic issues that will take time, that we need patience, that will take something that I think that I really like from Tebelo. He said you take people who are thinking. And so I think the key, or I think it's an opportunity with it, is that it allows us to expand our thinking, expand our horizons, and also to fast track solutions. But I think we cannot completely lean on it. The reason why I also say we can't completely lean on it is if the issue of leadership, so in terms of we have a leadership that's stagnant, or a leadership that is averse to learning. I think that would also mean that we are not actually going to be able to move or change anything or to do anything that will bring sustainable transformation within our context as South Africa. So I think also in South Africa, especially, I think that the blessing and the curse that we have is that we always have to work concurrently with particular issues or aspects that we need to. So in terms of the digital transformation, we still can't, leave aside poverty. We have or redress. We have to do it concurrently. We have to use it at the same time. So I think it is an opportunity, but also if we're a bit tone deaf in terms of the times or the people, I think we can miss a big opportunity to do impactful work in that particular space.
Thank you so much, Nondumiso. Let me go to Funzani. Funzani, please talk to us. What are the possible workplace changes and challenges as a result of digital transformation? Here, Funzani, I'm thinking about fraud schemes and so on, corruption and so on. Please talk to us, but I want you to be brief so that I can give the rest some opportunity as well. Come in, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Pat. I don't know how brief I can be, but I'm certainly going to try. And here really you're touching on something that obviously keeps me awake at night, right? So how do we use digital transformation? Where can it be an enabler, for, how can security be an enabler for digital transformation, right? So here you would think about specific use cases, not necessarily industry focused. So if you think about, for example, how we can use things like blockchain, right? Where we're trying to say, so blockchain basically enables you to be able to achieve two things. Well, two of many things. One of those is the origin. You get the origin of a transaction or an action. So meaning you take away the ability for one to say, I did not take this action. The other thing that you achieve is integrity. You have, to some level, a very high degree of certainty. You have an understanding that the transactional information hasn't changed. So that could be a very, very useful type of technology. So blockchain, in terms of it being a fraud use case from a security perspective, but it's an enabler in saving costs through what we lose money through fraud and those type of transactions. Another one that I want to just take you through in terms of how does security be an enabler for digital transformation? Data and analytics. So how do we use data insights to be able to firstly be able to pick up on anomalous behavior, what looks out of the ordinary to what we're used to? Another way that you can use data insights from a security perspective as enabler to digital transformation is then to preempt undesired events. Are we about to be attacked? What is this data telling us about the action of a malicious actor? What will they do next? So those are just some of the things that I would like to leave with the colleagues in terms of how do we use security as an enabler, meaning lead the conversation with security towards digital transformation. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Funzani. Let me go to Chupi. Chupi, please talk to us. Will digital transformation bring about a new working world order, and how is that going to happen? Your views briefly, Chupi?
Thanks, Dr. Pat. I'll quickly go through it briefly. So I definitely think that digital transformation will bring about a new working world order. I mean, if it hasn't already started gradually, in other parts of the world. And soon I think, we need to start asking ourselves, are we actually ready to embrace it at this point in time? Because there is really a great paradigm shift that is well underway. And if we look at the global, for example, telecoms industry landscape, we see that it's changing faster than ever. And it's really key for us to start anticipating the need for, the improved organizational agility as the heart of a successful, digital transformation. And not even just that, but, something that's also coming to mind is that we actually also require a more structured approach, to digital services development in terms of, how we actually deliver the upside in the long-term view. And then another point is just looking at a wider set of demand drivers to, that requires more of a nuanced, network infrastructure roadmap. And obviously, going digital really requires a shift in the organizational mindset, and just looking at the structure and how we actually interact and utilize all those digital and technological advancements within the different, landscapes and the different verticals, so that we can actually put ourselves, in the different, directions that we obviously headed in.
Okay, thank you so much. Pauline, I wanted to come in, talk to us. Pauline, I personally hold a view that says humans move jobs and jobs move humans. That being said, how will digital transformation going to affect the movement of jobs for people and vice versa? Pauline, please come in and please be succinct.
Good
evening. Sorry, man. I was muted and I was battling on the unmute button there for a minute. I didn't realize you were calling me.
All right, talk to us.
Sorry, is there something specific?
Yeah, I personally hold a view, Pauline, that says humans move jobs and jobs move people. That being said, how will digital transformation going to affect the movement of jobs and vice versa? Just talk to us, but be brief because of time.
Certainly, and it goes back to what I said earlier about the youth, our up-and-coming future leaders, all having an interest to move to Cape Town, because seemingly certain parts of the country, let's take eThekwini or let's say KwaZulu-Natal, is not moving fast enough. Then there's the interest to move abroad. Like you said, technology moves people. With the exposure the youth are getting, and it's good to see that the government has introduced coding at schools, I worry that the pace is too slow and the affordability is too slow. I mean, to set yourself up with a decent computer is not affordable to the majority of South Africans. So yes, indeed. And when we talk about people and the movement of people, we must not look at ourselves, because by the time we hit the prime of digital transformation in our country, it will be the ones that are now in pre-primary level. So that is where the focus needs to move. We need to plan as a country for where do we want to see the foundation phase learners. When they grow, where are they going to grow into? Because we probably have already lost the high school learners. By the time they graduate, they will be caught up in where we are. Millennials, for me, is not the future. So in respect of moving people and moving the technology where the people are, I think South Africa really, really needs assistance in the strategy that's going to help us turn the country into a first world country when it comes to digitization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me just ask Thabo Kolosha and Monli to take this one. Is there a view that digital transformation will improve project planning, project executions, operations and maintenance? Thabo, come in first, just half a minute, and then the other half a minute is going to go to Monli. Come in, Kolosha.
Sorry, Dr. Mazibuko, can you repeat the question? I think you were breaking up there.
All right, sorry for that. Is there a view that digital transformation will improve project planning, project execution, and also the areas of maintenance and operations? What are your views? Just half a minute, and then I'm going to go to Monli on the very same question.
Yes, for a number of years, this could be a long answer, but I'm going to try and keep it short. For a number of years, we have, I was involved with a company that had multiple offices. What we used to do, we used to have what we call work share offices, where you have 3 or 4 offices working on the same project. Through digitalization, we would have, we create a workspace where everybody can work in one platform. So this is the only way that we were able to tap into resources that we didn't have in South Africa. You find that the Manila.
Kolosha, we seem to have lost you. Maybe let's call in Monli. Please, Monli, come in. We seem to have lost Kolosha. I'll catch up with him later. Monli, just half a minute.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. Definitely the digital transformation. If I take one of the things you mentioned, maintenance, it certainly will, and it probably is improving maintenance where it's applied. I'm a firm believer that you can't automate or even digitize something that you're not doing manually. In other words, your digitization and your automation has to improve on what you already doing, because all it does, it will provide you with data. Right now, we see opportunities where we are looking at using drones to do inspection of infrastructure. So we know our landscape is not that good in KZN. So we've got pipes that goes in areas that are very difficult to inspect. And with drones, now certain things are becoming a lot more possible. So there is a window of opportunity to improve there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mundi. Lunga, we've got about 25 minutes. We basically have got 20 minutes because in the last 5 minutes, one of our panelists is going to do a vote of thanks. But I want us to make a call to action right now, colleagues. So the big question in making the call to action is, what are the necessary leadership interventions that are required for us to make that switch? So maybe one of the questions to answer is, what is it that we need to do from a leadership point of view to make sure that we do not leave others behind? What is it that we need to do to make sure that others do not become victims of digital transformation? And then the other one is maybe this one, Lunga, I would want you to be the one that takes it. The third one would be, how do we make sure that corporate South Africa is on par with the rest of the world, or probably one of the leaders when it comes to digital transformation? And then the very last question that I would want us to talk to as we make a call to action will be, what leadership investment do we have to make in order to make sure that we see a visible shift from a digital transformation? Zama, please come in first, 10 seconds. What are your views in terms of the leadership call? Zamambo? Okay, let's go to Chupi. Chupi, your views in terms of the leadership call? 10 seconds. Colleagues, am I still audible?
Yes, you are.
We can still hear you.
Okay.
All right. Let me go to Sitabile. Sitabile, what are your views? What do you think leadership should be doing in order to basically support the digital transformation? 10 seconds, Sitabile.
The leadership should be more engaging more. They should be making more activities available, getting more information out of their teaching, learning, equipping, those top three. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shall we go to Sianda? Numaro, please come in. What are your views in terms of the leadership call?
Thank you so much, Doc. I think what we need to do, there has to be a political will first. You know, if there's no political will from our leaders, we can never go anywhere. Two, I think our politicians, we need to move with the times and put right people in right positions so that we do not have people, you know, who are mismatched, you know, for the needs of the country. So I think leadership, everything begins and ends with leadership. That is what we need. That is why there's a call for more youth to be in leadership, more especially empowered youth. And I will be a bit political here. The issue of cadre deployment is no longer assisting, because we need people with necessary skills and people who have a political will to move the country forward.
Okay. No, thank you so much, Zidane. Dr. Raymond, please, your views, 10 seconds. What leadership call do you think we should be making?
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. I think in the transformation phase today, leaders should have the ability to manage both the digital transformation process and the new digital organization that is emerging. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Lepau, please talk to us.
Thank you. I think the capable leadership who are tech we need to upscale our workforce. We also need to choose and the right technology to it. They must make available the budget to do the transformation. The last one will be to align the strategy of the government or the organization with the digital strategies can be implementable.
Thank you so much. Let me just ask, Ms. Mokhate, are you still on the platform? Okay, we seem to have lost her. Okay,
yes, Dr.
proceed, ma'am.
About that I dropped off. So I think it's very important as leaders that we actually understand the key driving forces behind digital transformation ourselves, but more so to ensure that we also upskill others and actually understand and bring them on board in terms of the vision, the impact that digital transformation has within the South African landscape, and to kind of have that level of inclusivity as well, but have a clear strategy in terms of how we actually enforce this so that we leave no man behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see we've got a guest there, but I will move Chris. Chris, you want to say something in terms of the leadership call?
Okay, no, thanks very much, Dr. Pat. I think the most important part is that leadership is the future of the country. So poor leadership will take us many years back, and it will erase all the gains that have been made over there. So I think we need to make sure that we spread this message across all spheres of society, although we know there are barriers which are by design aimed at distracting any progress. But I do believe that with commitment from everyone, we can be able to move the country to the next level. So leadership should be taken to the next level beyond the traditional means of leadership. So thanks very much, Dr. Pep, and all the panelists and the guest speaker in terms of the insight that they've made.
Thank you so much, Chris. Before I go to Lunga, Funzani, do you have something to say in terms of a leadership call around digital transformation?
A number of things, Dr. Pat. One of the things that I've realized through some of these initiatives where we are digitizing even existing processes is there seems to be, the teams for successful delivery that we need are multidisciplinary teams. So it's no longer an approach where you just need the team from legal, the team from this division. So that would require the type of leader of the future should be a leader that's able to deliver through a matrix structure and be able to, dissect very complex projects in order to be able to successfully deliver that. The other two things that I've just reflected on, and some of them in different ways our guest speaker has spoken to, is the leader of the future will be a leader that has a growth mindset. So this is also a learning journey for that leader, but at the same time, they have to take the reins and lead organizations into the future. And lastly, it's going to take leaders that have the courage to fail fast and recover. We're moving mostly into the unknown, and we want to do so at speed. So that will come with some learnings that always, don't work out the first time. But if we as leadership learn, we will fail fast and recover. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shall we then go to Lunga? Lunga, talk to us about the issue of corporate South Africa, whether we need and also we can take advantage of digital transformation to be on par with the rest of the world, or we can take advantage and be one of the leaders. Over to you, Lunga.
Sure, Dr. Pet. I think it's a combination of both, right? I think we are leaders in some instances, and in some instances we can actually, follow what's happening elsewhere in the world, right? However, I'm a bit skeptical, right? But I'm also hopeful as well, right? Because what COVID did, it created an event that triggered a number of events and decisions that leaders had to do that they were not willing to make, right? So if I look at pre-COVID a lot of people struggled to convince leaders to digitally transform organizations, right? Including government leaders as well, by the way. COVID happened, which created a situation where everyone had to act and act quickly. So it was, a lot of plans that were supposed to have happened in 2023 to 2025 had to happen within 1 year, right? That's why I'm saying I'm encouraged. I'm skeptical because I'm starting to see leaders almost retracting back to where they were prior to COVID, right, in their own thinking, instead of really running with this, right, and really running with this opportunity and actually having an impact, right, on their customers, on society, right? So that's why I'm saying, okay, there's got to be a reset and we're going to have conversations. So there's a couple of things, right, that I think leaders have to have, right, from a characteristics perspective, and also to be successful, if you ask me. So leaders deal in hope, unfortunately. You have to deal in hope as a leader, because when people have given up, you've got to show up and actually start to motivate them and give them hope that it is possible, right? You always have to deal in hope. And I always see, in the sea of darkness, when you don't see a light, you have to create the light for your own people, but also for society as well. And I think leaders need to be able to make decisions. If you're not brave enough to make a decision based on available data, right? It's based on available data, in essence, because you also don't have a crystal ball to see what's going to happen in the future. So you've got to be brave and make a decision, right? But I think when you're doing those things, you've got to put something at the center of everything. You've got to solve for a customer problem. You've got to solve for a societal problem. If you're not solving for any of those things, you're wasting time. You're wasting your own time and you're wasting other people's money, right? Because remember, you have to deploy capital, and that capital is not yours. It's someone else's. It could be a pension fund, it could be an investor, it could be taxpayers, right? You don't want to waste that. If you're not solving for a problem, you're wasting time. When you solve for a problem, use the tools that are available to you, such as what digital transformation provides, right? Use those tools effectively, in essence. Solve for people's problems. Put money behind it and see it through. Put money behind it, see it through. And I think Funzani made something that I wanted to share as well. Fail fast and move on quickly, right? And learn from your failures. Learn from your failures. I think if most leaders in South Africa were to really apply those principles, Dr. Pett, will succeed. We can lead in many industries. We've led before in some industries. If I look at what Sasol developed, right, as a technology, which is converting, I think, creating petrol out of coal, right, in simpler form. It's an old technology. They've been leading in it and they've been exporting it, right, across the world. And there's many of these things across many industries in South Africa where we've been leaders. And we're actually not taking that opportunity to create more, right? But also, I always argue that there's little that's new under the sun. So learn from others. And, one of my colleagues always says, you know what? Copy with pride and paste with dignity. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lunga, I always said that everything rises and falls in the hands of leadership, be it perfect or imperfect. That being said, I would want us to bring this session to a close. We don't have to take it right up until 6:30. In doing so, let me invite Funzani to do a vote of thanks for us. Over to you, Funzani.
Thank you, Dr. Pat. Thank you, colleagues. I'm going to copy with pride and paste with dignity from now on. I love that. I love that. But on a serious note, I think this has been an amazing session, Dr. Pat. Thank you for facilitating this and making this a reality. Of course, I know that I have an appreciation for the amount of effort that's been required to coordinate people from diverse backgrounds, all with very valuable insights and depth in their respective areas of expertise. So a big thank you for this. I personally felt it was an afternoon well spent. with people that worry about the same things I worry about. And to our guest speaker, a big thank you, understanding that you're a family man. So this, we understand, you know, the sacrifice on your part to be able to spend time with us, sharing insights as well as things that we need to reflect on as leadership, as well as people that are already knowingly or unknowingly already citizens of the digital world. And just in terms of parting thoughts, what stuck with me through the themes that were discussed on the call, you know, just a number of speakers spoke about education. So let's reflect on the opportunity that is real, that is there in relation to education. And I also saw a very strong theme around education really being the thing, you know, the one thing that we can use to create equality in society. And there's already an opportunity to level the playing field with regards to education by leveraging digital platforms and scaling out these, prestigious schools and Ivy League type of education. So that will remain with me as well. Some of the other things that I was thinking about that I would like to leave as parting thoughts, colleagues, are things like, you know, let's reflect on whether there's a correlation between, you know, the industries that stand to benefit the most or that are digital transformation ready. Is there a correlation between those industries or organizations and their contribution into building a digital ready workforce? In other words, or are we all necessarily waiting for Amazon and Google to create the digital skills and then we harvest from there? And also lastly, another theme that came through from the colleagues in terms of policy making. So the word policy or legislation or, you know, government position on digital and transformation came up quite a lot. There's also a big opportunity for industry to influence policy, because government, is there to serve us and not the other way around. So we have a duty also to, influence policy through commentary, into green papers and other policy, notes that government puts out there. Thank you, Dr. Pat, and thank you wholeheartedly to all the colleagues on the call.
Thank you to everyone, colleagues. The next leadership session is on the 16th of July. Our theme is the role of leadership in strategic management. That being said, let me thank each and every one of you and wish you well for the weekend, and God bless you. A very good evening. Thanks and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye, guys.
Thank you,
everyone.